time does Doors take place in? You may have asked this question at some point or another, and it seems to be asked fairly often, but never given a definitive answer. Well, I tried my best to find one. I did some snooping around Google, and I have an idea of when the events of Doors take place. So buckle up. When you look at the architecture of the hotel, it can be difficult to determine when it was supposed to have been built. The elevators give us our first clue. You see, the elevators use a gate mechanic on the doors, which is a pretty old mechanic and was replaced. But this gives us an idea of when the hotel could have been made. You see, these were popular during the 1910s and 1950s, and the architecture of the hotel seems to say that we might be in that era now. If we look throughout the hotel, we see many times when it seems that the design of it is clashing with itself. Mainly the door that you use a skeleton key to go through to get to rooms. But I'm not really counting that as part of the hotel timeline, because that travels through time and space, at least I'm pretty sure. What I will be counting, though, will be the infirmary and door 100. Now, when you look at door 100, it seems to kind of get you stuck, because it's so much more technologically advanced than everywhere else in the hotel. But I have my theories on how that could actually still line up with the hotel. Let's start with the infirmary. Now, I don't doubt that some hotels were built with some sort of hospital wing, but the infirmary reminds me more of a war infirmary than a hospital wing. And this kind of makes sense according to my theory. You see, the architecture in the hotel could be traced back to the 1920s or 40s or anywhere in this era, but during 1939 to 1945, World War II was going on. Now, during World War II, there was a shortage on supplies such as metal or wood, and when you look at the way the hotel has been built, you can see that it uses a lot of wood, like everywhere, the walls and everything. So I doubt that it was built during World War II. So I would put it at before World War II, but after World War I. You know, in between the 1920s and most of the 1930s. During that time, wood was not that hard to purchase, and so you could theoretically make a hotel out of it. During that time, elevators used gates, so I believe this is not unfounded. Now, a lot of clues that people use would be looking at the items in the hotel. They may think the lighter and flashlight seem to reflect more of a later 1940s, 1950s style. And so you might immediately be thinking, okay, it can't be built in the 1920s because of the items. But I think that the hotel was built in the 1920s and then repurposed during World War II. I think this is why we have the infirmary in the hotel. I imagine that area was likely used for different rooms, such as maybe a cafeteria, or maybe just a lounge for the guests, but repurposed into an infirmary for World War II soldiers. Now, let's move on to door 100. Now, the first thing you might be thinking is, obviously this technology is way past the 1920s, and there's no way that this hotel could have been built during that time. Well, my theory is that that room could have been added on during the mining during World War II, because during World War II, mining was something that they had to do to get more resources, and so they could have built that and added it onto the greenhouse, because it feels odd the way they attached an industrial room to a greenhouse. It doesn't feel like how someone would naturally build a hotel. So my thought is that it might have just been added during World War II to try and do some mining, which is why we have the elevator that takes us down to the mines. I'm also thinking that the items, the lighter and the flashlight, could have been from people going into the hotel during World War II, and those could have just been stockpile items. I also have a theory on a few of the entities, namely Seek and Screech. We see Seek and Screech covered in this black goo. Now remember what I said about World War II? The hotel could have been repurposed into something different? Now think about that black sludge. I'm thinking it could be industrial waste generated by efforts in the hotel during World War II. I think another thing that points to the hotel being modified during World War II is those gates that you see in some of the rooms. In certain rooms there will be gates that you have to go to a downstairs room to find a lever and open. Now, obviously, this wouldn't be put in a normal hotel. It's kind of weird, but it would be an okay way to fortify the hotel. And so I think the basic timeline for the hotel is it was built around the 1920s, bustling with visitors, and then World War II broke out and the hotel was abandoned for a while, and then repurposed during the battles as a bunker. First, they used it just as an infirmary, then they fortified it a bit and added on the extra room at the end. Now, I'm sure there's things to look out for the outdoors, the back door, mines, but this is just my very basic theory on what might have happened. I may modify it in the future to fit some of the subfloors. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya!